A record deal signed by Trinity Rodman. MLS transfer windows have changed forever, and we check in on the expansion plans gone quiet in America's Rust Belt. That and more on Friday's edition of Morning Kick Around. Hello and welcome to the show. You found your way to Morning Kick Around, the show that dots the map of the American soccer landscape. How you doing? Thanks for joining us. My name's Robert Kerr, local soccer guy. And to my side, wearing a beautiful kit as always, is Jason Davis, radio soccer guy. How you feeling? And good morning, sir.
I am really good. It's great to be here. Happy Friday. Momentous day in the Davis-Ballantine household where my 4-year-old is now a 5-year-old. And I know you've gone through this a couple times, Rob. It's a big one. It's like a massive thing. 4 to 5 is when you go from like a little kid to a big boy. So big day for us over here.
This is a wild, unspoken coincidence. Is it this day? Is it January 23rd, the birthday?
Today
Our children share a birthday. It is my
Oh.
daughter's birthday. Is going from the 9 to the double digits. She's going
Wow.
the big 1-0 today.
Well, happy birthday to your daughter. Happy birthday to Tiago, my kid. So, yeah, there you go. Great day
Birthdays on a Friday and a snow day. I don't know.
It's coming here. We're prepping. We're prepping for the 8 or 10 inch of 12. I don't know. We have no idea how much we're gonna get. So yeah, but yeah, we get to celebrate birthdays today. It's also a big day to talk about soccer. So perfect. Let's go.
Yeah, we do have a lot of great stuff on the way. Like I said at the top of the show, we're going to talk about expansion sides or plans thereof, Trinity Rodman's record deal, and MLS transfers. And again, we got to get like a streak meter going on for Mr. Bob in Albuquerque, New Mexico, donating $10 again. I guess that's a good time as ever.
Wow.
You can add super thanks. You can become a member.
Is that money for our kids? Do we need to split down the middle, give a 5 spot to your daughter and my son? Is that how that works?
What can we get for $5 these days? Like some Slurpees?
Maybe, I don't know. Something. You get back a small bag of something is probably what you're looking at there.
Thank you, Mr. Bob. Appreciate the support as always. What a supporter of the show. Thank you to all our new subscribers. We've hit a new bump of subscribers. Thank you much for that. And also, tip of the hat, our new members this week, user FR8IR Freighter 44MM7H, kind of a random handle, but thank you for becoming a member. Random Dude OYT and Paul Koss, all becoming members since we were together last time. So thank you for becoming a member. If you'd like to do so, it's just about $3 a month. It gets you priority commenting to these live streams, bonus content, which we had some bonus content on Wednesday's show, and then also access to the Morning Kick Around Discord server where there's great conversations from like-minded individuals and those learning the game and those deep in experience of it. There's even a thread for folks that are MK Ultras that want or are starting their own club. So great.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Great community going on in the Morning Kick Around Discord server. So become a member if you're able.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know that a lot of people think like, oh, when they think DIY, they're like, oh, I'm going to go down to the Home Depot or the Lowe's and I'm going to pick up some, whatever. I'm going to do something DIY for soccer clubs in America is what we've got going on in the Discord. Like that is so cool. It's hard to even put into words.
Yeah, it's pretty special. I'm excited to see where that all goes, and I love to see the collaboration together. Poll on the channel asked, which sleepy expansion groups do you want to hear from? And with 41% folks at this point, at time I last looked at the poll, looking at Milwaukee, what's going on in Milwaukee? We might touch on that a little bit later in the show. And before we get rolling, other ways to support the show, ko-fi.com/morningkickaround is the place you want to go if you'd like to donate to our fundraising goals in 2026. And we're going to do that the Monday after Super Bowl. We're going to do a marathon session in order to help those fundraising efforts and also, have a lot of fun. So more to come the Monday after Super Bowl. We are also a podcast. So if you have us on the go, would like us in podcast format, you can find us on your favorite podcast platform. Support us on social media at MKickaround across all the various platforms. And if you'd like to write us a note, business inquiry, or just say hello, morningkickaround@gmail.com. You ready to rock here, Jason? Should we go?
Let's go. Let's go.
All right, let's kick the long balls. Friday's morning kick round is go. Are we going?
I guess it's not a go. I don't know.
All right.
Let me see. Maybe I can do it for it.
I think it's a monumental and game-changing moment right now. I can't even describe what it feels like. Obviously, everyone's going to have different thoughts and opinions about it, but I've never really cleared, so that doesn't change anything for me right now, and that is the words of Trinity Rodman on the back of signing a record deal. She is now the highest paid women's soccer player in the entire world.
Well, that's according to her agent, so you
True.
know.
Good caveat.
I clipped this from Jeff Kassouf's piece at ESPN. Obviously, he's got all the details. Jeff is a very in-the-know guy when it comes to women's soccer. In terms of the actual money, $2 million annually, including bonuses, multiple sources told ESPN, making her the highest paid player in league history and the highest paid female player in the world, according to her agent, Mike Sinkowski of Upper 90 Sports Group. I watched a little bit. I was on the radio yesterday doing my normal thing on Sirius XM FC, so I wasn't able to listen in. Apparently, they used some DMX music to introduce Trinity when she came on stage. Which one?
Which song?
I'm definitely. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I wasn't able to listen. Rob, you're killing me. All I saw was somebody tweeting or posting that they were using DMX, and I was like, well, that's an interesting choice. And also, R.I.P. DMX. Anyway, they announced this in LA because Trinity's there with the national team, and it was kind of a weird setting. It looked very public access-y. The video, they had Sebastian Salazar from ESPN out there to do the hosting part. You had Michelle Kang on the stage. You had some of the brass from the Spirit there to announce this. It's a big deal. It is. Obviously, there's a little bit of a PR win here for NWSL as a whole because of the recent exodus of some high-profile players, specifically to England and places in Europe, right? So to keep Trinity Rodman after this whole saga, and remember, we talked about it, we covered it, there was the original contract offered to Trinity Rodman that would have paid her a significant amount of money, made her the highest player in the league. It was backloaded. And what happened is the league said, wait a second, this violates the spirit of our rules because you're basically counting on an increase in the salary budget you can't know is actually going to happen. Right? We don't know what those numbers are going to be, and you're sort of building in a salary for Trinity Rodman that would eat up too much of your budget if those increases didn't happen. Then there was this back and forth, and amidst all of that came out that the league was considering this new rule, something akin to the DP rule in Major League Soccer, but something called the high impact player rule, which they then tied to a bunch of metrics that really have nothing to do with just the ability of the player or the club's desire to sign a specific player. It had something to do with marketability. There were things in the Guardians list was one of the ways that you could qualify for the high impact player designation. And it was all very gross. And I think that's still out there, right, as a problem. What my understanding is that the high impact player rule is going to impact Trinity Rodman in this contract. And basically what they did is they balanced this out a little bit more so that she won't be paid more on the back end, that there will be, that there will be more money on the front end, and therefore the league is more comfortable with this.
Yeah, I'm glad that the player was paid her market value and that the domestic league here in the United States didn't lose yet another player. There was a succession of the top national team players going abroad for bigger numbers than it was possible in the $3.5 million salary cap. So they make this rule. I think people are going to call it the Rodman rule, a la like the Beckham rule. And I really hope that obviously they have to deal with this grievance from the Players Association still, even though Rodman's going to be getting paid this amount. I really hope through that grievance proceedings that they're going to be able to hash out those half-baked things, because if a player's ability to qualify for this high pay rate is dependent on some European soccer writers and what
Yeah.
their arbitrary ratings of are the top 100 players. That's a very slippery slope, and I really hope the league doesn't go down that way.
Yeah, look, you asked me if before the show started, you asked me if the high impact player rule smacked of desperation on the part of the league. And I suppose you could look at it that way, that they're sort of desperate to create something that allows a little bit of extra spending or to keep some high profile players, but doesn't break open completely the spending rules that NWSL has in place, which are obviously meant to restrain costs for fear of overspending, but are also about parity on some level. Jessica Berman has mentioned that several times, that one of the reasons that they said no to the original contract offered to Rodman was that it violated the spirit of the rules, which are nominally about parity. But again, I think I wrote about this on my newsletter, Jason Davis Soccer Eagle. Go find that. And we talked about it a lot. It feels as though the NWSL is missing their moment. They're not understanding what is in front of them here. They have an opportunity to remain one of the elite women's soccer leagues in the world, and they risk falling behind at least a certain subset of clubs and a certain subset of leagues if they're not willing to be more aggressive or willing to allow their clubs to be more ambitious, even if that does maybe upend parity a bit. I just wonder if the NWSL is not reading this correctly. And again, keeping Rodman is important. It's just one player, but she is the face of the league. I don't think there's any real denying that. She's incredibly talented. She's affable. She's intelligent. You know, she even said at this weird press conference last night that they want to keep players. Like look, she plays for one team and she's making her money. What does Trinity Rodman really need? Why does she really need to care about anybody else in the league? And yet that's the kind of person she is. That's the kind of player she is, that she has taken on the mantle of, okay, I'm not just representing the spirit. I'm not just representing myself. I'm representing NWSL and women's soccer and club soccer in America.
Yeah, she fended off, or the league rather, fended off big money deals from overseas to stop the bleed of talent going to the WSL and other leagues. And then don't forget the USL Women's League had that cheeky offer in there to bid higher than what was possible in the NWSL. So Trinity Rodman, per her agent, breaking the record to become the highest paid women's football player.
This is good news for your friend Jason, who is a Washington, D.C. area native and has gone out to Spirit games and would like to go see Trinity Rodman play. I missed her in the playoffs because she was injured, even though the Spirit obviously navigated their way to the final. I missed out on that.
Yeah, having her local definitely enhances your soccer scene, no doubt about that. All right, let's take a breath and come right back. Talk a little MLS here on Fridays morning kick around. Major League Soccer's final summer transfer window has been extended to line up with the European counterparts and puts it a little bit beyond the World Cup final. So with this 2026 summer transfer window, the final one, what does that mean? And, what do we think about this extension of the summer transfer window?
Well, okay, let's remember that this will be the final summer window that is the secondary window for Major League Soccer, because starting in 2027, they will turn over the calendar and there will be a summer window that will be the primary window ahead or just into the brand new season for 2027-28, which again is still mind-blowing. I was thinking about this laying in bed last night, Rob, because my brain is so soccer soaked, just thinking about it's going to be so weird with MLS starting at the same time as the Premier League and Serie A and La Liga and all these leagues that I care about and watch in Europe. And one thing that has been, constant in my life for the last 20 years, and it's certainly been a feature of my relationship with my wife, who I've known for about 10, is that soccer never stops. I tell her, soccer never stops. There's always a league that I care about playing. Next summer might be a little different. Now, there's sometimes tournaments and international things, But I may actually have a summer that I can tell her, there's nothing going on. It's the off season. So let's do something. I don't know. In terms of this window, though, this is obviously about lining things up so that MLS clubs don't have a disadvantage when it comes to the transfer window in the summer. Because there may be European players who are open to the idea of playing in MLS. But what happens when the MLS window closes before the European window closes? Players who are trying to keep their options open or maybe still want to be in Europe hold out and they wait and they go, well, maybe I could still play in Europe, but I still got 2 weeks on the window in Europe. And then the MLS window closes and those players don't move. MLS can be more aggressive here, right? They can take advantage of this in a significant way. And I do think, like, this is a growth moment, a big boy pants kind of moment for MLS. I think the calendar is one of those things, but this is also for me, this is MLS truly wanting to engage with a transfer market so that they can not uneven footing, because obviously MLS is going to come up short with a lot of top 5 European leagues, but with some of those players in Belgium, players in Portugal, those kinds of levels, you might be able to compete.
Yeah, and it also aligning with if the Major League Soccer is shooting for those targets over in those European leagues, having a different window doesn't mess with leverages, and they might be able to get squeezed because a player could get another if the window doesn't align. A player could then try to work up their bid, or the team could at least early in the window, and then just for the week later for another bid to come in and gazump them, so to speak. So I think this helps level their own playing field. It's not a self-inflicted difficulty.
There's a knock-on effect with this too in terms of how it impacts a season, because the later the window stays open, the later you can add a player, the fewer games they're going to ultimately play for you in this season. Now remember, again, the calendar changes next year, so this is only a one-time thing. But if you don't come in until September, right, the first week of September, if you don't get your deal done, you don't join until the first week of September, there's very little time left in the MLS regular season at that point before you go to the playoffs. But that actually might make it a little bit more exciting, depending on how many teams can actually make moves and how many want to strengthen their squad just ahead of the MLS Cup playoffs. And, it's a little bit like, it does have this vibe anyway, but it's like the baseball trade deadline, right? The teams that are aiming for the playoffs or still have a chance to make the playoffs, they make deals at the trading deadline in Major League Baseball, and everybody's like, oh, who's going to get a relief pitcher? In MLS now, this is going to be a thing. And it has been, but I just think it exacerbates that a little bit. It's also worth pointing out, friend of the show, Nicholas Murray, works for USL. As a reminder, these windows also apply to all men's professional leagues in the United States. They're not exclusive to MLS rules. And what this means is that what he's saying is essentially that U.S. Soccer is the one who determines what the windows look like. And there's this also bonus, which I included here. In addition, FIFA approved a request to allow MLS's 3 Canadian clubs, Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver, to adhere to the registration periods established by U.S. Soccer rather than Canada Soccer, because they were at a disadvantage because their windows were slightly different. So they're now in line with the rest of MLS, which is certainly good news for them.
Yeah, that would be pretty odd and definitely put them at a disadvantage if the Canadian teams were working on a different set of rules there. And that text on screen there is a little bit small. Tell us what those rule changes you have in front of you there. Are those different from what we just reviewed, Jason?
Well, so the biggest one I think here is the elimination of limitations on the number of cash for player trades a club can make each season. So MLS introduced cash for player trades last year, which is saying, look, I know there's another show that covers MLS much more in depth than we do on a regular basis, soccer-wise, that calls them cashfers, right? They're transfers. Essentially, they are transfers. They're internal MLS transfers that aren't trades, right? They're not, I'm sending you this player and you send me that player, or I'm sending you this tradable asset like a draft pick or allocation money and you're sending me a player. It's literally, I'm paying you for a player. There are some, obviously things that apply to how that money can be used and things like that. But that is essentially what it is. It's within Major League Soccer, an internal transfer market, which is the same as everybody else, right? If Crystal Palace wants Brennan Johnson, they pay Tottenham for Brennan Johnson, and nobody thinks any more deeply than they spent whatever £1 million on Brennan Johnson. That's what MLS is doing. But there were limitations on the number of times you could use that transaction type, and now those are gone. The rest of these are a little less impactful. Elimination of age restrictions and limitations, the number of intra-league loans, a club can make each season. Those have been around for a while. They're not a lot of them, but they do obviously have a role to play in player movement. Remove the deadline for a player to be considered a domestic player for a season instead of an international player. So I guess there was a deadline in terms of green cards and those things. Clubs may agree that an international roster slot traded within or prior to the primary transfer window will return to the original club on a specific date within the secondary transfer window. I mean, we're getting in the weeds here. There's a designated player element in terms of cash for player trades. If you acquire a DP through cash for player trades, then in the secondary window, then they can be added the mid-season designated player salary budget charge rather than the full. I imagine is probably what's going on there, because that impacts what flexibility you have within the salary budget. And then there's some supplemental things as well. So, impactful rules in some ways, and then some other things that are kind of like housekeeping for MLS. But again, like the fewer rules MLS has around player transactions, I think the better for the league. Now, is MLS going to just completely cut off all the restrictions on spending? No, they're not going to do that, right? MLS is still going to adhere to some salary budget rules to maintain, again, parity and spending controls. But if the league has these crazy, complicated rules around everything, I think it separates fans and supporters from the business off the field. And I think we want to actually ask a question here in a minute as to whether or not MLS has improved in that area.
Yeah, we're going to ask a big question in just a moment, but thank you to all who are watching along, commenting along with us. This is an interactive show. Me, Jason, and you guys having a discussion about American football. If you'd like to contribute to the show, become a member, consider becoming an MK Ultra, just a couple bucks a month. You get priority access to the Morning Kicker on Discord server, priority commenting on screen during these live programs, as well as bonus and early access to content. When we come right back, we are going to ask the big question here on Friday's Morning Kicker On. All right, welcome back here on Morning Kick Around. With international transfer sagas, interleague cash transfers, and fears of the assembly of a super team, big question here today: has MLS gotten more interesting off the field?
Can I throw it back at you first, Rob? I want to hear what you think.
What do I think? I do think that it has gotten more interesting off the field, at least from a discussion point of view. I think that the angst surrounding Inter Miami's reloading has definitely led to some good conversation and good debate. Is there preference being shown to Inter Miami? Is this the otherwise? They're not really necessarily playing by the same playbook. Usually, there's a rebuild after a championship, but at least on paper, Inter Miami seemed to be going from strength to strength. The rumor, or the report that they were going after Denny Benawanga, one of the most clinical forwards in the league. They were trying to get him from LAFC, a direct competitor. Obviously, it didn't ultimately pan out, but the conversations have been enabled for that, which they haven't been in the past. I mean, not about 10 years ago, we didn't even know what dollar figures were associated with transfers.
Yeah,
and now we have interleague sagas. Teams are competing with each other for players, which I think is actually the key to this. There is some interleague competition for players. And then also, I don't know, with the whole Josh Sargent thing, I don't remember a story for a player being so active on both sides of the continent, or both sides of the Atlantic, rather. I mean, the Norwich side has their own piece. MLS has their own piece. And I don't necessarily remember a saga, at least an extended period of time, where there's an American player trying to go to Major League Soccer, where they're stuck in the middle with their club. And to me, I think there's more going on than there typically is. Like I said, it wasn't too long ago where we didn't even know how much players were going for, and there wasn't a direct way for a team to just go, that's a player that I want, and then
Yeah.
go out and get them. They had to go through all the different buckets and labels, but now it seems a little bit more directly. We're inching our way towards that back and forth, transfer banter sort of saga situations.
Yeah, I mean, I think, everything is everything is relative. So you compare it to the insanity of the transfer rumor mill that exists, particularly in England, but throw it across Europe and certainly the big clubs, the big leagues of Europe, right? You every day there's another wild transfer. Real Madrid wants to sign whoever, Erling Haaland is something that came across the line this week. Is Erling Haaland's a target of Real Madrid? And obviously that's one of the most famous and expensive and talented players in the world and the biggest club in the world. Period. So that obviously going to drive a lot of chatter, right? And people are going to pay attention. They're going to click on those things. And by the way, always be somewhat skeptical of transfer rumors. I have a general rule. Nothing is real until the player is holding up the jersey or signing the contract. Signing the contract is actually the thing, because sometimes they go and hold the jersey and then the deal falls apart. So
yeah,
it's even a little bit dicier than that. But I do think, look, it's always been a thing, right? That MLS suffered for the off the field drama that drives a lot of American sports and sports in general, obviously football in Europe.
like what's the NBA without interpersonal drama?
Well, not just interpersonal drama, but like the NBA's free agent period it burns so hot, and there's so much excitement and intrigue and who's signing where and all these things. That part of the business is not, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, we play basketball, that's our product, or we play soccer in this case, that's our product. But you'd be a fool not to realize that you got to fill the time between the games or people will drift away. But the NFL has done an incredible job. This is why, like, as much as people in American soccer don't love the idea of MLS trying to be like the NFL, right? And they hired a guy who had worked for the NFL and Don Garber to be their commissioner. And they have a bunch of guys who own NFL teams who also own soccer teams, and we wonder about their motivations and how much they care about the soccer. What you can say, even if it doesn't always work, and maybe it's not the best approach, is that the NFL, more than anybody else in sports, has figured out how to fill the time between their games in a way that keeps their fans engaged and keeps the money rolling in. And if MLS wants to be that, then, you have to find ways to fill that space. And if you have so many rules that it restricts clubs' abilities to go out and sign players, it restricts even the rumors around players.
Yeah.
There have been many, many times over the past decade and a half or whatever since the MLS DP rule went into effect. I guess we're almost at 20 years of the MLS DP rule. That's insane. When Beckham signed and all that started to happen, there have been many times when you would hear a player's name connected to an MLS club, and you'd immediately be able to go, well, that's nonsense. They already have 3 DPs. What are you talking about? They can't fit him in. That doesn't make any sense, right? The European press love to throw the Galaxy's name out every time a big name player might be interested in America. And it's like, well, no, they got 3 DPs. They can't fit him in. The more that you restrict this, the more you limit your ability to engage fans. And I mean, this is all marketing marketing office stuff. And as fans, it's not really our first concern. But in terms of the entertainment value and the intrigue, I think MLS has improved. I still like to see more, Rob. I still like it to be a bigger deal. I mean, of course, I've made my peace with it, but wouldn't it be nice if MLS transfer rumors made the big name outlets in American sports media, rather than be this thing that exists in a subculture that only you and I and Soccer Wise and people on certain segments of social media talk about?
Yeah. Okay. Is there water cooler talk at the office? I mean, that whole scene has changed anyway, because not many people are going to the office, or definitely not in the same way. But it makes it much easier for the conversation to be extended. It's like, oh, did you hear LAFC is going after so-and-so, so-and-so? And that's a lot more fun of a conversation for fans. And then people, like us trying to dig in and, provoke conversation. If, you never hear about the rumor, or you don't hear about what mechanism or anything like that. It makes it hard to dig in and really have any meat of it. It's like, do they have a DP, or what is their GAM situation?
Right.
There's not too many
Yeah.
people casually discussing that.
Yeah, you never really have to engage with that when you talk about European transfer rumors. You never. It's just like, well, is that a smart amount of money for that team to pay, or do they have that money? You could talk about it in that way. But when it's MLS, it's like, well, under what subheading of the roster construction requirements does that fit? It's like, or somebody who really knows MLS could go, well, that can't happen because they don't have enough GAM, and you're like, thanks, Bob. You just ruined it. Like, come on.
But to be honest, though, the other American sports like NBA and NFL, they do have those complicated mechanisms and cap space and franchise tag and this and that. And
right,
the other,
but
there's so much other stuff to round round the soft edges.
It's that, and I'll shout out Riverside Grove. NFL has a monopoly. MLS needs to separate itself from the NFL model. MLS will never have a monopoly despite 30 years of trying. I don't know if I believe that MLS is trying for the monopoly.
No.
Anyway, the difference is that the NFL and the NBA are, without any doubt, the biggest leagues in the world for the sports that play, right? There is literally not even an idea of a competitor for the NFL. And when you talk about the NBA, Eurobasket's not going to measure up. So you've got those leagues being the only place for these top level players to go. Whereas, of course, MLS is not in that category and maybe never will be. But that doesn't mean they can't be part of the swirl. And I do think, again, lining up the calendars, it's about transfers in the sense of doing actual business, but it's also going to massively benefit MLS when it comes to the amount of rumor and chatter and discussion and debate and intrigue and will he or won't he that is around MLS.
Yeah, will he or won't he? That's a great way to sum it up, because and also the mechanisms aren't well enough known, and they've changed long enough to where it sets a precedent. Like, oh, they spent $500,000 on GAM. The rest of their roster build is completely blown up because of that. I don't know if we know, or the general fandom knows, like, what's an overextension. Maybe it's pretty easy to identify if someone got a mediocre player on like some crazy $10 million a year. That's obvious. Yeah. But at the same time, it's hard to know, like, examining the meat of a deal. How do you know if they've overextended? Because, like, maybe the number's big, but maybe those rules change in a year or two, or something that was way overpaying for a player, 1 year, but with the rules changing every other year, you wouldn't necessarily know if they've gone a step too far with that. And I guess we've gotten a little bit off track, whether it's more interesting or not, but having, cash for trades, having more direct, connections, and the will he, won't he, I think is huge for building stuff around. It's not just, I clicked on the TV, watched the game, turned it off. It's done until I turn on the game again next weekend. So we can examine that further. I'd love to see what the chat thinks about that, and then come back around to that. Keep the conversation going. Big question of the day.
Here's what I would like to say about our listeners, our ultras, our viewers. We have this mix where there are plenty of people who are like, yeah, this is something interesting for me and MLS and intrigue. And then there are plenty of people who are like, no, screw MLS. I want nothing to do with that, which I appreciate, you guys. I do. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Major League Soccer. Is it been more interesting off the field? Keep those comments coming as the the video ticks on. Plenty of stuff to cover still in this episode. So if you haven't already, hit subscribe. If you haven't done so yet and you're considering becoming a member, just a couple bucks gets you priority commenting to these live shows, priority access to bonus content, and access to the Morning Kick Around Discord server. All right, we're going to come back with an episode of Soccer Under Construction. We're going to take a peek at those sleepy expansion projects across the Rust Belt of the United States when we come back here on Friday's edition of Morning Kick Around. Soccer Under Construction here on Morning Kicker, and I'm Robert. He's Jason. We field and scour the internet and get a lot of news about, stadium renderings, agreements with city councils, and various projects for expansion of the lower leagues across the United States, especially, mostly connected to USL. But there are a number of projects we got press releases and some initial heat from that have gone a little bit quiet. Amongst those, Buffalo, New York. A release came out recently from one of the Buffalo USL organization's spokespeople. They're saying, despite not having a site selected and signed for, everything is still on pace to meet their 2027 deadline there in Buffalo.
Okay, so a reminder and update here on Buffalo, because we talked to Pete Millett Jr., the guy behind this this effort to bring a USL team to Buffalo, which seems like a great place for a soccer team to play their games. Pete's from Buffalo, has a sense of the soccer scene. This was a rendering that came out when they had identified a site in Buffalo. The geography of Buffalo is not going to be my I'm not going to be an expert on that, but this was apparently in a industrial area. There was some sort of toxic fume factory. I don't think they were making toxic fumes, but they had toxic fumes nearby, and it ended their effort to put a soccer stadium there. Now, they were always planning on doing a modular stadium. So when they say we're still on target for 2027, what they're saying is it won't take us that long to build the stadium, right, Rob? That's my understanding.
Yeah, I believe they're going with the modular stadium route for this initial stadium for Buffalo. And the precedence has been set in a couple other locations for these modular soccer stadium. The build-out time is about 6 months for these modular stadiums. So, if they get this location locked in, you'd think that they would be able to hit this 2027 marker. Initially, I was going to say that seems unrealistic. I think that building a stadium, that's happening here in Detroit. They're just breaking ground. They're going to, get it ready in a year. That seems like a tall task. But with the 7,000 person stadium size that they're looking at, they believe they can do it in 6 months. So I guess they have until July-ish to really lock it in. Or to even start, I guess they should.
Well,
they got to lock it in sooner than that, and then get the building started by some.
Well, I think I think you have to identify your site. And November 18th story out of Buffalo that said a final decision about where they will develop their stadium is just weeks away. And Peter Millett Jr. said it will be in Buffalo, and they said optimistically a final decision could come by mid to late December. It is now late January, and we have not heard about the site yet. So they're still trying to figure this out, which isn't great. We're rooting for this. I think we liked talking to Peter, and obviously I got nothing against Buffalo, and I think again that would be a good place for a soccer team. So, to hear them having gone cold a bit is definitely not ideal. And again, I think it's important for us to be realistic about some of these projects, because talk is cheap. It's easy to say we're doing a bunch of things. Actually getting those things done is different. Now, it's also worth pointing out, and I do see a comment in the chat about this, and we were going to mention it. They made a hire yesterday. Their academy director. They've hired an academy director. So they are building out the structures that would support a pro soccer enterprise in Buffalo. An academy is going to obviously help feed into the first team, but they're not yet there to build a stadium, to hire a coach, to get any players, to even have a logo or a badge or an identity. None of that has happened yet, Rob. So, yeah, Buffalo seems to be pretty cold at the moment.
When we had Peter Millett on the show, was it like nine months or so ago? He seemed to have the branding. When we asked him about it, he said TBD, but there's a kind of a twinkle in his eye that made it seem like he had that already kind of made up. I think he insinuated maybe like a red and blue, maybe to be in step with the Bills there. If I remember that conversation correctly, it seems like they might have had a lot in their pocket, but they didn't want to get out over their skis releasing that till all the dots were connected with the stadium and whatnot. And they obviously, you said that they had one lined up. They thought they had a stadium, but it was the industrial neighbor PVC Chemicals. And it's interesting. They must have been serious for a business to say, hey, stay away from us. We're a dangerous site. So that was interesting development that came out after they had already reached some sort of an approval about that, and they did some testing and said that the chemical problem wasn't an issue anymore. And then came back and it turned out to be an issue. So Buffalo still trying to pin down that location, but still intending to start playing in 2027. So we'll have to track that, and a lot of stuff has to happen. Have to be a very ambitious timeline as the countdown to their kickoff proceeds there in Buffalo, New York. Going a little bit west in United States, a location, a market, so to speak, that has gone very quiet. And on the poll on the Morning Kick Around post page, people want to know what's going on in Milwaukee, and there really is crickets in Milwaukee soccer.
Yeah, well, it looks like, I think we did talk about this a couple of months back, what was going on in Milwaukee, but we thought it would be worth it to kind of catch up because we went through a whole thing where they had a poll for naming the club. Rob, do you remember that we were jumping in
and all that?
with our opinions on what Milwaukee Pro Soccer should name their team? I think there was like Milwaukee Cream or something like. I'm trying to remember some of the names off the top of my head. I mean, they're in fact, it's still up there. These are I have the finalists. This is the final again, finalists for a project that has gone nowhere since. Milwaukee Tall Boys, Goodland or Goodland. I'm not sure exactly how they say it in Milwaukee. Lake Effect, Milwaukee Iron, 1846 Milwaukee, Milwaukee Barons, Milwaukee Brigade, Fresh Coast, Cream City, and Milwaukee Industrial. So those were the final 10 names, again, for a club that has done nothing. They were even at one point taking season ticket deposits. And I guess that actually it says that merchandise purchases act as a season ticket deposit, and they still have a store and they're selling T-shirts. It says Milwaukee Pro Soccer. It's not a name. It's not a logo. It's nothing but Pro Soccer. And yet it seems as though this has gone completely dead. And in fact, I believe that the reporting out of Wisconsin says that USL has moved their attention to Green Bay because the Milwaukee project has not gone anywhere.
Yeah, and we saw an article from the local Green Bay paper basically saying, the Packers are done. Let's revisit this soccer stadium. And the article lists about 10 different sites in Green Bay, a wide array of plots available there. So no shortage of locations, according to the speculations of the local Green Bay paper. And I am interested to follow up on that because the article is kind of a poll for the locals, like how interested are you in soccer? Which one of these proposed locations are you interested in? So I am keen to follow up to see, how eager and excited the folks of Green Bay, Wisconsin are to have pro soccer. They had a Peter Wilt amateur side there for a little while there. Yeah. So interesting to see. Actually, I'd say I like the Irons, going back to the whole naming thing from Milwaukee. I like the Irons out of all those names you said, and I'm curious to see if they ever announce it or ever will announce a winner of that naming competition. But it's really a shame because I think there's definitely an appetite for it there. They've got some great amateur sides. They've got an indoor team there. And then some historic teams like the Bavarians in the area. Wisconsin, definitely soccer lovers, and Madison not too far away. They are an exciting team in USL League One in the region. So you'd feel like of all the major cities in the United States that don't have them or a pro soccer team, Milwaukee seems like a reasonable place to have one.
Yeah, it is disappointing when a project like this doesn't come to fruition. Again, I always kind of reserve my disappointment in a way because it has to work for all of the stakeholders, right? It has to work for everybody. And as much as I want soccer to grow, I still am a little bit concerned when it's looks like a free land grab for some wealthy group or some real estate developer, right? And we've made our peace, I guess, and we talked through the issue of this being, a real estate play. But this is, again, USL and Justin Papadakis as their real estate officer and the league and the growth of the game sort of leveraging the idea of there are these places in these cities that need to be redeveloped. And these cities are constantly looking for ways to reinvigorate their downtown or their industrial site or their rail yards or whatever it might be. Hey, why not go pitch them on the idea of a pro soccer team? And again, with the notion that professional sports in smaller towns, not Milwaukee, that's a big town. They've got a major league baseball team, a major league, they got an NBA team. They obviously are not that far from an NFL team. For them, it's a little different. But from some of these smaller towns, it makes sense to sell them on the idea of here is a civic identifier. Here is something that could be central to your character as a city. Obviously, for city councils and mayors, it becomes a legacy play. So I understand why they're doing it. I don't know, though. I mean, again, so there was a plan for the stadium in the Iron District in Milwaukee in a vacant downtown parcel. They were going to share it with the Marquette University soccer and lacrosse teams. They were going to build a concert venue. They were supposed to break ground in 2022. Then they delayed that to 2026. But now there doesn't seem like anything is happening. The story at MilwaukeeMag.com about the plan for Green Bay says that it's not necessarily true that if there's a USL team in Green Bay, there couldn't also be a USL team in Milwaukee. But it definitely feels like they need a new plan because whatever was the goal for this Iron District site has not come to pass.
Details in Green Bay. So they entered into one of those exclusive bargaining agreements to check the feasibility of a pro team in Green Bay. And the term sheet there, the stadium site needs to be 4 to 6 acres in size within the city of Green Bay, suitable for up to 5,000 seats. And you'll like this one, Jason, and offer room for an entertainment district to develop nearby.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of how you entice the city to get involved with this because the stadium becomes an anchor. It's a concert venue as well. Then you're doing other things around it and hopefully invigorating that area. That thing about like when you say an exclusive agreement or what is it, a letter of intent or whatever they call it legally. People, what does that mean? Well, basically, what they're saying is Green Bay will not negotiate or talk to other soccer leagues to potentially put a team from a different soccer league in the city of Green Bay as long as that letter of intent applies. So, for example, we were talking Buffalo, we're talking Milwaukee, also in the Midwest, Cleveland, right? Cleveland is going to have an MLS Next Pro team. That is planned. They're building a stadium. That is a go. But they also there was a different group looking at a USL team, which doesn't seem to be moving forward, which has gone pretty quiet there in Cleveland. So, again, Cleveland's a big town. I don't think they would ever sign a exclusive letter of intent with one minor league soccer outfit. But there are towns like Green Bay, and we've seen some other ones who are like, no, we're only going to deal with like the USL is like, we want to do this, but we need you to deal only with us because we don't want the rug pulled out from under us down the road if we start developing something for you.
Yeah, Cleveland is a whole kettle of fish because in the comments when we did the Leviathan story last week, a lot of folks were asking, is there, within the promotion and relegation era, is there any plans to consolidate any of these teams? Because there are a lot of teams and obviously a lot of planned or hopeful bids in USL. It definitely seems like Cleveland and other cities are a little bit of a proxy for a land grab, but it's like who kind of flinches and commits first to a big thing. I mean, with USL, WPSL, there was talks of some NWSL, and let's not forget there's already an indoor team and many amateur sides in and around that area. So there's plenty of soccer going on, and there is a possibility or a version of this where Cleveland goes from 0 pro teams to multiple pro teams all at the same time. And some are heating up, some are going quiet, but definitely a little bit of a quagmire in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah. Again, I think there's always this fear in some places that you're going to cannibalize each other, right? Like that they're like if we put a team in this town and then another league puts a team in this town, well then we both can't survive and that's bad for soccer and neither team will thrive, right? Now we
Yeah.
do have an example of a moderate sized city supporting two teams in professional soccer in Chattanooga, but is that a test case for this happening in other places? I think it's an interesting question, right? And all of these groups are doing studies and checking on, what would the market actually support? And it's not just about fans, right? Like I know, so I wrote a piece about Dallas because Atletico Dallas is going into downtown Dallas while you have FC Dallas playing in Frisco. And I had a bunch of people from Dallas say, "Oh, absolutely, the market can support both these teams. Don't worry about it." And that's a big town, right? It's a massive market. Why wouldn't they be able to support an MLS team and a USL championship team? It's not just about fans, though. It's also about those corporate sponsors, the organizations that might work with you, the groups that are there, the money that's available sort of around the game that I think is interesting. I did find, by the way, these are the renderings that USL Cleveland put out when they were trying to make progress on their stadium plan. I think there's a school there in Cleveland whose name I can't remember right now when we talked about this story, Rob, where this was supposed to be.
Cleveland State.
Was it Cleveland State? Okay, so and then, I remember the thing about Cleveland is that the two stadiums, if this one got built, and again, you've got MLS Next Pro, a different group, Cleveland Pro Soccer, already, and they're making progress. There's no shutdown there. We're pretty sure that's all coming together. I believe that if you looked at the geography of this, these two stadiums would be relatively close together. I don't remember exactly how close, but I remember there being something about these two stadiums and these two teams would be within a couple of miles of each other, which would be unique again in American soccer.
Yeah, the head-to-head would almost be there. I mean, MLS Next Pro isn't, directly the top tier version of Major League Soccer, obviously, but it would be interesting to see competing professional men's outdoor teams going neck and neck. And like I said, there's also WPSL team over there as well. So plenty of soccer going on in Cleveland, but which one will bring a stadium? Which one will bring the professional game to Cleveland? When we had a guest from Cleveland who was very much in touch with the NPSL side in Cleveland, said that the USL parties haven't reached out really at all, and outside of the press releases, really haven't seen any boots on the ground from the USL. But MLS Next Pro kind of extended themselves a little bit more, offered to facilitate and train up some of the amateur sides, operations staff and some like. So there's definitely more of a connection, more of a outreach going on from the MLS Next Pro side in Cleveland last time we checked in there than the USL.
Let me address, we're going to do a dot the map and we're going to do an open question segment here in a couple seconds. So, and I know we got some stuff in the show from earlier that I want to address, but let's get in Chris here. Couldn't independent clubs start lowest tier of system and work up?
Kind of.
We've talked about this idea, right? And, when you see teams going from NPSL to USL League 2, or sort of adjusting their approach in that level of the game. And there are obviously different high-level amateur approaches. And you can play, what's funny is you can be a club and play UPSL in the spring, also have a team that plays in the summer in the NPSL or USL League 2. And I mean, I don't know about it, like exclusivity agreements, but I do know that there are teams that play NPSL and UPSL because those stadiums, those seasons don't overlap. Right. So, but you have different approaches. But when we see teams, I think it was the Fort Worth Vaqueros, right, which I believe is a Michael Hitchcock team. Is that right?
I know. I saw him celebrating the move, but I don't know 100% for a fact if Vaqueros is his
right.
team.
There's also Midwest Premier League, right? That's worth mentioning here as well. There are different options there. When you see teams kind of moving leagues, or you hear about summer league teams who are drawing 6, 7, 8, 10,000 people, like Annapolis and some of these places, you wonder, what could they do? but they have to have an entry point to professional soccer, right? You have to be able to buy your way in. Unfortunately, that's the way it works right now. Buy your way in to a professional league. And that's, in some of these cases, it's a group coming in and saying, we want to put a team here and we're going to launch a club. And then, it's obviously more romantic and much more attractive to a traditional soccer fan to see a team start, play some amateur seasons, build up some energy, get a fan base, and then go, okay, now we go pro. But they still have choices there, which make it interesting, right? And figuring out, should you go MLS Next Pro, which is probably supported a little better, feels a little bit more well, I'm not sure what the word is. The price point I think is lower, but the marketing strength is maybe not as good. Should you go USL where you're completely independent, right? You're not connected to the network of MLS. You're connected to USL, but it's a much different relationship. Like, I don't know, those things are in the air.
I think that touches on maybe the need for the fourth division tier in the United States. Like the league for clubs is trying to balance that. Those amateur teams that can do more than just the 3-month season. Maybe they're bit piecing it together with the spring, summer, and UPSL and NPSL in fall, or in the middle in the summer. But like there's got to be an in-between option between like a $50,000 3-month spend and a season, and then, tens of millions of dollars.
Well,
in the third
I
tier.
think it's about the approach and like the quote unquote seriousness, right? And sort of so just because it's come up recently. So again, we had a team go from NPSL to USL League 2, right? They're staying. That's a summer league operation in Fort Worth Vaqueros, and we've seen other teams do this recently, right? Move from NPSL to USL League 2, and I think that it's to Chris Sal's point, right? So you're a summer league team and you get 5,000 fans in 6 to 10 games over 2 to 3 months for fairly cheap ticket prices. That's a lot easier than getting those 5,000 fans to come out for 17 to 22 home games over 8 to 10 months with varying weather in a lot of places, and you're spending a significantly more higher price point for your tickets, right? But as you said, like, how do we help those clubs lift themselves from one to the next without them having to, without them going under, basically, right? And is League for Clubs semi-pro the answer? UPSL is a semi-pro operation, but UPSL is a semi-pro operation that plays this odd sort of apertura clausura kind of thing, spring and fall, and they are an all-comers operation. They're regionalized, but anybody can sign up to play UPSL. Like doesn't matter. Joe Blow Soccer Academy can put a team in USL or UPSL rather. And if for some of these teams, I imagine for some of the clubs that are looking at whether they want to be summer league teams or continue to play all year round. And again, NPSL is offering now spring and fall seasons. Those are the calculations. Like, what does our facility look like? How much are we paying for rent? What are our costs, to travel? How many teams are around us? Can we do this? Can we grow in a natural way that doesn't risk the existence of the club? Are we a serious club that imagines going pro rather than a team that or a club that just wants to put a senior level team in some league to play high level amateur soccer?
And for context, you're talking about the come one, come all nature of UPSL. Isn't there like 500 to 600 teams in that league?
Yes. UPSL has 500 plus teams. But again, they're not exclusively UPSL teams.
Yeah, they bounce around.
Right? Yeah, I don't even mean they bounce around. I mean, again, like multiple. In my local, the DMV region of the UPSL runs there's actually a DMV North and a DMV South because there are so many teams playing in UPSL in my particular region. Now, they do have different levels of UPSL. So they have a Premier and a Division 1. And so it's not all these teams are in one big group, but you have so many teams that they have to split just the Washington, D.C. area into North and South. But those teams are not just playing UPSL. Some of those teams will play UPSL in the spring, NPSL in the summer, UPSL in the fall, right? They're just kind of rolling through the year, picking whatever season works for them in terms of amateur soccer. And what I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with that. But what that means is that you don't think of the club and go, oh, that's a club that plays in that league. Right? You don't identify, they don't have you don't have a firm grasp on who they are in terms of their identity. And maybe they're not thinking that way. Maybe they just want to put a bunch of guys in the field and play some soccer. And if people come out and see them, great. If they don't, so what? Like, that's the difference between how serious are you about growing as a club is a major factor in all of this.
And I think we're coming to the conclusion we're going to do some explainer videos to kind of parse through what each of these leagues does, who they serve, and who are the member clubs of them. And to make it a little bit more confusing, I just learned about a new kind of bridge semi-pro league, the American Premier Soccer League, which was total news to me, which is kind of, from what I've understood in my brief little bit of scanning what that was when I've learned about it this week, was that they're kind of paralleling, from what I could tell, what the League for Clubs is proposing of having that like serious amateur level where it's an extended season and trying to unify some other smaller regional leagues into a somewhat bigger, serious, more long-term season. So we'll see how that all plays out. But that all kind of circles back to who is it going to end up being the pro team in Cleveland, and kind of a check-in on the Rust Belt sleepy expansion stories, starting off with Buffalo, who say they are still on track for 2027. A big shrug of the shoulders in Milwaukee, which might turn into Green Bay. And then Cleveland might have none, might have a dozen teams. We'll see what happens there. Stick around. We are going to come right back and dot the map and put some members on the map of the United States as we continue with Friday's edition of Morning Kick Around. All right, welcome back in Friday edition of Morning Kick Around, wrapping up our week here. And I think we're going to get into this habit of dotting the map here on the ends of Fridays, as there have been a couple new additions to the MK Ultras and some other folks adding their coordinates to the map. So we have our map here on screen, like how there's getting more and more blue dots here detailing all of our Ultras from across the country. And so to see where we are in the thread, I'm going into the thread. We got to keep that clean with our locations. I want to see, I think we last dotted in Ontario. So do we have a dot for Ken in Prestonburg, Kentucky? So I think that might be, that might be the last one.
We did do Prestonburg. That's ringing a bell. So let me zoom in. Yeah, there's Prestonburg, and then I believe just underneath Prestonburg, now that I've gone to Prestonburg, I don't know that I can get rid of let me get rid of this. There we go. See, there's Ken. Lexington SC is his club. And we can add clubs. I know there's a couple of those in there as well. We've already dotted the map with some people, but they want their club affiliations added to their entry. I think actually the way I'm going to do this is name, and then underneath here in the comment area, I can put Lexington for Ken, and that'll be the way of it for everybody. So what else you got, Rob? Who else? Come on.
All right, we're moving down the way. Oh my gosh, we got
actually hold on. I gotta play this. I made this. I never use it. If there's no sound,
I was like waiting for some sort of an explosion, or at least maybe it should have a plop. Well, like
just a little thing that's illustrating how we're dotting the map. So yeah, okay. What else? Who we got?
All right. Do we have a dot for Phoenix, Arizona? Andrew Swanson.
All right, let me zoom out. We go to the west. There's my computer loads the very complicated map here. Thank you to Google for providing this service, I guess. Should we thank Google? Phoenix, Arizona. That's Albuquerque. That's not it. Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah, there's Phoenix. That is Andrew Swanson.
Oh, man. Then maybe
Desert Dreams. You're behind, Rob. I mean,
yeah.
you're going. We've done
going too far back in history.
I guess so. I'm zoom. Let me zoom out again. All right, so you can see the full map. That's the best way to look at this. We've got that big sky country and upper Midwest, or I guess that's the far Midwest. What do we call Nebraska and South Dakota, North Dakota? Those are the plain states. So we're not big in the plains states. We're not big in the big sky country. Somehow we don't have Colorado dotted yet. That's very disappointing for your friend Jason, whose family is all from Colorado, who is a Denver Broncos fan. That is
I do need to
unfortunate.
apply pressure. I have people in Colorado, and most of all my American family is in the Chicagoland area, and our pins are scant in that area. So I'm gonna have to apply some pressure. Maybe the elbow of
Considering
Rob.
considering how much content we have made about this particular place, Boise, Idaho. And again, my sister lives there, not an ultra. Come on, sis. What's going on? We don't have anybody. I don't go ahead. Go ahead,
We've
Riley.
gotten subscribers. We have and getting some nice messages from Boise folks, but
And
no one's taking
this
the
one,
plunge.
what Chris is saying here. Texas is how on earth is Texas empty? Like, what is that? Are we just not Texas's cup of tea? Should we be like wearing hats, like cowboy hats on this show? Should we talk? We've done Dallas content. We talked about wolves and snakes and things of that nature. I don't know what's going on.
We've done videos specifically on states like Florida and a couple other states specifically. Maybe we need to hone in on that. What's going on in Houston? What's going on in some of the other big cities in Texas? Perhaps we need to pin that down. But going back to the map thread in the morning kick around Discord server.
Hold on, before you do that, I want to prioritize people who are here. So random dude is saying Columbia, Missouri. So that's Columbia, Missouri right there. Let me go ahead and put how do I do that without, I guess I just got to search up Columbia here. That's the best way to do it. Columbia, Missouri, and we'll dot the map and we'll change this. And if you want a different handle on here, random dude, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to put random dude, OYT. That's OTY, OYT. There we go. If you want your club affiliations, any club whatsoever, let me know. I'll drop them in there. So that's good. We dotted the map with somebody who's live in the chat. I always prefer that. That is always good.
Chris on here with a bit of a putting the heat on American Outlaws formed in Nebraska, but no dots whatsoever. Come on.
Yeah.
Outlaws.
Look, I know the guys who founded the Outlaws a little bit. In fact, one of my good friends who lives here in Northern Virginia, Matt, moved out from Omaha to Northern Virginia, was involved in the Outlaws from the very beginning in Lincoln, Nebraska. So I kind of count him. He's not an ultra. Like I don't think he's signed up, but I know he appreciates what I do when we talk soccer a lot. So I'll consider Nebraska kind of dotted, and I do, and we obviously have here in Iowa, right, just across the river from Omaha. We've got what does that say? 0.69. That's not what I want. I don't know what that is. We got Todd. Todd's over there in Council Bluffs. He's in Council Bluffs. I don't know what this is. I gotta get rid of this. All right, what else, Rob?
All right. Is there any more of those in the live chat? I don't see them. So going to the thread in the morning kick around Discord server, Amherst, Ohio. We've got Mike in Amherst, Ohio, supporter of Lorain County FC Columbus Crew. And if Cleveland ever gets a USL team or MLS next team, like I thought, he would support them too.
All right, so I'm sorry, I was trying to edit this. What's his name?
Mike in Amherst, Ohio.
Just Mike. And you said Lorain County. Is that 2 R's in Lorain County?
1 R.
1 R in Lorain County. Okay, so it's not okay. So Lorain County FC. That's the Leviathan situation. Yes.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I don't know if Lorain County has multiple clubs, but I think it is Lorain County Football Club or Lorain County Leviathan Football Club.
You said New England Revolution. Was there one more?
No, he was a Columbus Crew was his secondary team.
Oh, I thought you said Revolution. I'm sorry. Columbus Crew. My apologies. All right, is that it? Lorain County and Columbus Crew for Mike in Amherst?
Yes, sir. And he, obviously Cleveland TBD, I would say, if you wanted to add any more to Mike. And then our next dot to add to the map, put it in the southeast. We are going to Florida, New Smyrna Beach, which is located in between Daytona and Orlando.
Okay, there we go. New Smyrna Beach. We've got a lot of beach stuff going on. In fact, I've seen some updates on some clubs on the coast of Florida that we need to talk about. All right, so who's in New Smyrna Beach?
Phil
Talk
Sports.
Phil Phil talks sports. All right, Phil. And who's does Phil have clubs he wants included, or is it just we're just doing Phil?
He's dotting the map.
Okay, that's it. I see we got. Let's go back to the chat. I see Mr. Shovelfoot is saying Minnesota United and Aurora FC. Where is Mr. Shovelfoot's dot? Because I don't remember. I'm sure we've dotted him already, and I would guess he's somewhere up there, right? In
Minnesota.
Well, I don't have a dot in Minnesota. So, Mr. Shovelfoot, where are you located? Have we dotted put your dot on the map yet? Because I don't see that. I don't see a Minnesota one. He might not be in Minnesota. He could be somewhere else. He could be in another part of the country and just the Minnesota team.
We are a country of transplants. We are not afraid to move around. So yeah, definitely not guaranteed to be there. But yeah,
while we're talking about Minnesota for just a second, we'll wait for Mr. Shovelfoot to maybe tell us where he's located. Shout out to Minnesota. Just, we don't need to go in depth. Okay. Shout out to Minnesota. Shout out to Aurora FC. One of the founders of that club is a guy I consider a friend, Wes Burdine. Been on the show. I think he talked to you, Rob, because I was out. You talked to Wes about soccer being played in frigid temperatures in Minnesota when MLS was doing the calendar switch nonsense. Wes owns a soccer bar. It's a queer bar. It's a soccer bar called Blackheart in St. Paul, Minnesota. He's obviously been sort of front lines of what's going on there in Minnesota. Shout out. I wrote not about him, but I shared some thoughts in newsletter today. I didn't have a lot of space in my head to write about soccer this week with everything going on with my own kid turning 5 and some other things of that nature, people of 5 years old being in the news. Okay. Anyway. So yeah, I just want to acknowledge what's going on. Today is the day of the general strike in Minnesota as well, or in Minneapolis, St. Paul as well. So yeah.
Yeah, interesting updates to come. But yeah, definitely much more serious things going on Wes's feed than playing soccer in cold conditions. No doubt about that. In the Discord server thread, the map thread in the Morning Kicker on Discord server, which you can access with a MK Ultra channel membership, Clayton, North Carolina. And his club,
North Carolina.
And that's Dwayne A. And his club is Mountains to Sea FC.
All right. So that's I got my shirt, which is not here. It's hanging up in the other room for some reason. Dwayne, this is like that, DUANE. Dwayne.
That's the one. Dwayne, okay, last initial A.
No, okay, I'll put the A in there. Mountains to Sea FC. Do they capitalize the 2 in that situation? I don't know. Is it like this? Mountains 2. Okay, we're going with that. Let's go. The way
Dwayne put it in the Discord server, it is just the TO, the word 2 there.
Okay, doesn't matter. I'm going to go to St. Paul, Minnesota, because I see that our friend Mr. Shovelfoot has identified his location as St. Paul, Minnesota. So we'll drop him right there on that side of things. I am in Minnesota here, right? There's not a different St. Paul that I got pulled into. Okay, so make sure I got the right St. Paul, and we'll put Mr. Shovelfoot, and he said he is Minnesota United, the Loons, and Aurora FC as well, the women's team there in Minnesota. Incredible story of success, Aurora. All right. That's good stuff. I like that. I like dotting the map, Rob. This is fun.
All right. We got a new one. Yes, I love it too. This is one of the most fun things of the week. We got a new entry, Cool Breeze PK, located in Fountain Valley, California.
Fountain Valley, California. I never heard of Fountain Valley. I'm learning geography as part of this too, right?
That's one of my favorite. That is Cool Breeze PK. Is
like that? Handle. I don't know if that's the way it is.
Cool Breeze pipe up if you want to be known as anything else than that. And his team is the Richmond Kickers and Orange County Soccer Club.
Richmond Kickers on the other side of the country, Cool Breeze. Oh, that's nice. I like that. That doesn't follow, but I'm sure there's a story there, which I love. All right, Orange County, SC is Orange County. There you go.
And according to my eyes, I'll admit my vision is deteriorating, but that's all I can see for now as far as undotted dots from our MK Ultras. Right, and great. If you would like to have your dot dotted, put it in the dot the map thread on our Discord server. And if you're not a member yet, do so now. It's great conversations. We talk about national team, Major League Soccer, USL, local stuff, creating your own team. The DIY Ultras Making Clubs thread is the latest and a fantastic new addition to the Discord community there. So if you haven't gotten your dot location in there, do so now. What are we zooming in on here? Providence, Rhode Island?
I'm just looking at Rhode Island. Just thought I would check Rhode Island, see what it looks like up there. It's not a place I've spent a lot of time, but maybe in the future, Rob, something could happen. You never know.
Yeah,
you never know.
Yeah, Rhode Island would be a wonderful place to visit one of these days. All right, we've gone a bit over time, but it's been fun to dot the map, of course. But is there anything else we need to cover here on this Friday edition?
I did say earlier in the show, we were talking about one of the topics today, and somebody asked a question, and we moved on, and I did not answer said question. So let me see if I can scroll up and find where it was early in the show. There's a lot of comments. You guys are making it very tough to find the thing I was trying to talk about. I think it was man, now I'm totally blanking.
All right, so while you think about that, I'm gonna look ahead a little bit. We have a couple guests on the books. We're gonna talk about CONCACAF Champions Cup within the next week or two. We're gonna talk about we're gonna talk to a reporter from Kansas City, talk about the sale of Sporting Kansas City, as well as the World Cup preparations going on there. So that's
okay. That's great. Yeah. I'm sorry. I found the comment. I found what I was looking for.
Shoot, man, shoot.
We were talking earlier about the MLS calendar switch as part of this MLS transfer window change, because this will be the last year that MLS has its primary window or its secondary window, rather, in the summer. Next year will be their primary window because they're switching the calendar over. And I made a comment about how, I've always had to tell my wife soccer never stops because there's always a league that I care about playing, whether it's Europe on their calendar or MLS. And I said, soon that won't be the case. But John is pointing out that as of this moment, unless something changes, there will be USL in the summer of 2027 and beyond, right? They have not said anything about following MLS's lead and switching over their calendar. That is also, just in terms of wow, how the hell is that going to work? It's an interesting thing to ponder. I don't think there's another country on the planet that has multiple professional leagues playing on different calendars, right? That is such an odd thing to even consider. And, John said, I'll be able to watch the USL during the summer. Yes, that's true again. But now that just gets me thinking about whether USL should be switching. And George followed that up earlier by saying it would be in the USL's best interest to change the calendar when their Division I and their Pro Rel starts. What do you think, Rob?
Well, I do recall that we did get a little bit of a source reach out to us and say there is a big USL meeting scheduled for February. And the speculation was maybe a calendar switch, but there is a February USL meeting on the books that might allude to something like this, because it would be pretty wild, and it'd be very much an American soccer is weird topic to have domestic leagues operating on a completely different wavelength. But to be fair, that's actually happening now. We talked about all the amateur leagues doing the different season, but there's also the the USL Women's League that's already doing the Euro calendar.
Yeah,
so we're
is
already
true.
there. NWSL and the USL Women's League are already operating in different schedules.
That is a good point. I do think, again, one of the reasons why this doesn't feel as weird as it might in a different country is because we just don't have that. It's just not as connected. We're not again, it's leagues running their things independent of one another, siloed from one another, essentially. What are there USL players that make the jump to MLS? Sure, that happens sometimes. We've seen USL coaches land in Major League Soccer either as assistants or head coaches sometimes. But the back and forth between USL and MLS is so limited, say, in comparison to the Premier League and the Championship, that it feels like it might not be as big of a problem as it would in another country. But at the same time, it also means that you're preventing that further interconnectivity between leagues and operations and things like that. So, yeah, man, it is such a weird idea, and it keeps American soccer weird.
Yeah, and that's one of the founding pillars of this show is the odd, quirky things that have basically played out because of the fractured history and the commercialism, and just basically being not so culturally embedded in it. It's not just the way it's been for 100 years. So people are making it up as they go along, or as the market sees fit. And everyone seems to have their own way to do it, which is the secret sauce. But we will continue to cover all the oddness and the weirdness of American soccer when we return. Notes for the future: we are doing our telethon, our marathon show, the Monday after the Super Bowl. So we got a couple weeks to line up some fun, quirky guests. Maybe we'll have some oddball segments, maybe some fun interviews, and maybe some big mystery guests.
How about a game? Can we play a game on the show? Is that something we can come up with?
We played around with, when we were in our formative era a year ago, we were throwing around the idea of maybe like a soccer Jeopardy or something like that. Maybe an MK Ultra member might, put forth some gaming ideas for us for the telethon the Monday after the Super Bowl.
I also think it might be fun, considering the depth of our soccer history, the number of clubs that have come and gone, to maybe play a guess the club. I can do some badges where names are maybe blanked out. We can try to figure out, one of us can give, one of us can guess, or we'll do something like that. We'll have some fun with American soccer history, I think.
There could be maybe a Jeopardy element. It could be like dead clubs for 100, Jason. Because MLS had a category on Jeopardy this week. Even I think I saw.
Yes, they did. I covered that on the Best Soccer Show with Jonathan Tannenwald, who filled in for my friend Jared Dubois. We talked about, it was a pretty simple category. Like, the questions were all very, very easy. Like, the $1,000 question was like, the Revs play in this stadium, and I was like, what? No, what? That's terrible.
I was impressed. All three of the contestants were answering the questions, because I've seen sports questions where there's like one out of the three are the only people that know anything about sports. So it was apparently good to know there was more than one.
A Tournament of Champions episode, so the level's supposed to be higher. They went when they named off the categories and MLS came up. The guy who's the I guess defending champion, because that's who usually picks the first category, he goes, as a Fire fan, I have to pick MLS, and I was like, oh wow, we got a Fire fan on Jeopardy. That we're making progress. He also had an Amish beard, which was another thing I noticed. But anyway,
yeah, that $100 question was super. He was literally a picture of David Beckham, and it's like,
who's this?
Like, who is this? Who is one of the top 10 most famous people in the world? What is Beckham? That's the answer for today. So so we're talking about ideas for the telethon, the Morning Kicker on Telethon 2026, the Monday after the Super Bowl. That'll be fun and exciting. Producer Jenny on the background says she has ideas for games as well.
Go.
So let's get that germinating. And thanks as always for tuning in, your membership, your support, your comments, and everything and all of the above. We'll be back live once again on Monday. But until then, everybody, please stay safe, stay warm, and enjoy your soccer.